Hello there, everyone. This is General Tiberius XX, and today we'll be talking about the Hearts and Ironers 4 mod, The Fire Rising. Now, for this video, I'm just going to talk about some ideas I would like to introduce, ideas on how to improve the mod and make it better, like some updates, and like some new focus trees and paths that could help make the mod a lot more fun and enjoyable. Anyway, let's get started. The Fire Rising mod begins in kind of like an alternate history 2020 where COVID-19 becomes a lot worse, leading to pretty much the decline of human civilization. The global economy begins to crumble, the nations begin to decline. Things are like a lot worse, especially in the United States, where there's like a major dispute between Donald Trump and Joe Biden that leads to a second American Civil War where multiple factions appeal, like Donald Trump's faction, Joe Biden's faction, the fascist, the communist, all fight each other to make a new United States under their ideas. And you also have other nations that pretty much take advantage of the collapse of the United States to make a new order in their own image. Anyway, continuing. Like Russia, for example, like when Vladimir Putin gets COVID-19 and dies, the communist comes to power. They take over pretty much Russia, re-establish the Soviet Union, then they roll over their tanks across Europe, establishing a new Europe under the ideas of communism under the leadership of the Soviet Union, like the glorious Soviet Union. And there is also China in Asia, where they are fighting Japan, and when they defeat Japan, they pretty much achieve absolute dominance in Asia, becoming the leading Asian superpower in Asia, finally achieving the Chinese dream, beginning a beautiful Chinese century. Moving on to Japan, if Japan defeats, well, the PRC, well, it achieves dominance in the Pacific, and the threat of communist China is finally taken care of. Now, if you don't know what this is the flag of the Internal Republic. Now, I will be honest, as I think this nation is kind of like a American version of 1984 Oceania. Now, this was like a big, well, a very big nation that stretched from the British Isles to the Americas, Southern Africa, and Oceania. Anyway, this is their flag, the flag of Oceania, as pretty much it was a massive country. Like, see here? The British Isles, Iceland, the Americas, South Africa, and Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, the Guinea Islands, you know. Anyway, Oceania was like a single party dictatorship ruled by Big Brother. Life under it was like very tough, and it was like involved in pretty much wars between like Oceania versus Eurasia and East Asia, as the three superpowers fight for complete dominance over the world. As Oceania seeks to conquer the entire world and become the true master of the planet. Of course, in 1984, war is peace, freedom is slavery, and like knowledge is arrogance. Anyway, I think the internal republic could gain some interesting paths. Like, it could seek to unite all of North America and South America, like, unite the Americas under the internal republic, and maybe go for total water domination, like conquering the entire water. Anyway, if you don't know, the internal republic is led by Joe Biden, as pretty much he takes leadership and he pretty much becomes like the new big brother of the internal republic. Like the internal republic is like a American version of Oceania. And I honestly see the internal republic as Oceania. That's just my opinion. It's just instead of Big Brother from 1984, Oceania, you just have Joe Biden, who becomes like the new Big Brother and like rules the world. And there he is, Joe Biden, the great president of the internal republic and our new Big Brother. I bet there would be a lot of propaganda images throughout all of the internal republic when you see Joe Biden riding dragons, eating ice creams, all of that. It would just be crazy living in the internal republic, as it would be like a Oceania. And look, AI Joe Biden, the new big brother. Anyway, this is the map of the Second American Civil War. Like I said, multiple factions fight each other. Like Donald Trump, Joe Biden fighting each other, as well as communist and fascist factions fight each other. There is Mexico right here, and here is the idea for Mexico. I think Mexico could definitely need a focus tree in my opinion, and they would be given a choice to get involved in the American Civil War and try to take back all of the territory they have lost to the United States when the U.S. took Texas, New Mexico, o- Oklahoma, Arizona, California, Nevada, all those other lands that the Americans took from them. And Mexico could like use the Second American Civil War as a chance to seize back all of that land and try to like reestablish the Mexican Empire. I think that would be cool. Anyway, continuing, the fourth nation on this list is New Africa, as this was a nation proposed to be run by African Americans, like a nation run by black people. Like, this was the idea by pretty much the Black Panther movement, as they did seek to pretty much try to establish a independent African American state. This was also an idea for the nations of Islam that wanted to establish a independent black state in the US. And this should be added to the mod, as it would be cool though to actually play as New Africa. Not to forget, you could also try to pretty much take all of Florida and have Louisiana, Alabama. Georgia, South Carolina, all those states. Maybe even have New Africa have the borders of the Confederacy of States. Anyway, speaking of the Confederacy of States, well, actually, the Confederate States of America, I meant to say. The second nation on the list is the Confederate States of America. Now, this nation did indeed try to gain its independence from the United States in the Civil War, but failed and were defeated by the Union. Now, this nation should be added to the mod, especially for the Second American Civil War. Like, it would pretty much take all of the territory they claimed in the Civil War, like Virginia, Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and the Arizona Territory, like all of these lands right here, and just break away from the collapsed United States, becoming its own independent state. It should also have a folk history, though. So should New Africa. And there should be a folk history for the Confederacy, for the Confederate States of America to form the Knights of the Golden Circle. This was a nation that was proposed, though, to be established if the Confederates won the Civil War and broke off from the United States. It would pretty much extend from the Confederate States of America from here all the way down through Mexico, down to the northern ports of South America, as it would control basically the Caribbean, northern South America, along with all of Central America and Mexico. It would be pretty much a regional power. This should be added for the Confederate States of America for the folk history, because I think it would be very cool to form a nation like this in the mod, and it would be fun. Moving on to the next nation is Cascadia. This should be added to the mod as well, since trying to establish a independent Cascadian state would be cool. Like you would have it from Washington, Idaho, Oregon, all the way up to Alaska. Would be cool to establish something like this. The good news is development for these nations is already in progress. There's already a focus tree for the Confederate States of America in development, right here. And there is also a focus tree being developed for New Africa right here. Finally, there is a focus tree being developed for Cascadia. Sorry about that. Like you can just see it right here. It's pretty cool if I say so myself. A independent Cascadian state in the United States would be very cool. I'm glad they're pretty much going to add this to an update. And you know what other nation they should add? They should add Quebec. Like Quebec gains its independence from Canada and becomes like a independent state from Canada. I also think they could maybe add more events to Canada. Anyway, continuing, and don't forget, Quebec needs to be added to the Fire Rising mod too. Anyway, next on this list is Mexico. Yes, I mentioned it in the Second Civil War. But Mexico needs a folk history. One of the ideas is the fascists would come to power in Mexico and seek to reestablish Mexico's former glory. Like, take back all of the lands that the United States took from it in the Mexican American Civil War. Then they would invade Central America and just like annex all of this territory, reestablishing the borders of the Mexican Empire. Now, I do think Mexico could also have other paths to take, but I do think, though, the path for Mexico to become rather a fascist state and try to re-establish its borders of the Mexican Empire would be cool. Moving on is the Baltic Republic. This is the flag of the Baltic Republic. Anyway, the Baltic Republic would be like the Baltic states uniting into a single country, like it, like a new Baltic Republic, extending from Yellowstone through Latvia, Lithuania, all the way down to Kaliningrad, establishing a unified Baltic Republic. This would be a cool nation to add. Moving on is a unified Scandinavian Republic. And yes, this is the flag of a unified Scandinavia. Now, this is the map of what a unified Scandinavia would look like, as it would include Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, as well as Iceland, and parts of Russia, as it would be a regional power, and I think forming this nation in the mod would actually be very cool. Anyway, I hope this will be added. After all, forming a unified Scandinavia would be fun and interesting. Okay, this is pretty much like a update coming for China though. Yes, they are adding more focus tree, but I do have some ideas for China, and I hope it will be accepted though. I think they should add some more for the People's Republic of China. Maybe even some events, though, like when Russia collapses into civil war, or if the Russian state collapses, and possibly to be added to a possible focus tree, mainly for Chinese nationalists. They would mainly try to take Russia's fall east, like take back the territory the Russians took from it, like from 1820. Well, all those years ago. Like take back like Outer Manchuria and like form the Greater People's Republic, like the communists restoring China back to the borders of the Qing dynasty, forming the Greater People's Republic of China. Like Outer Manchuria and all the borders, including Mongolia, being part of the People's Republic of China, along with Taiwan, forming the Greater People's Republic of China. Continuing, well, as you can see, this is a map of Asia. Now, you're going to ask me, why show a map of Asia? Well, I have an idea for a focus tree for China, though. And this is regarding the idea of unifying Asia under a single union, the Asian Union. Now, I believe a focus tree should be established for China to establish an Asian union, like establishing like a superstate that would control all of Asia, like unify Asia into a single country, the Asian Union, like an Asian superstate union. Now that would be a cool idea to include like a unified Asian Union, like a unified continent. Now, that would be a superstate that would truly challenge powerful nations, like a unified Europe, or a unified, or like the internal republic conquering the Americas, or a unified Africa. Continuing now, the next on the list is North Korea. It doesn't have a focus tree, but I have some ideas for it, and this will prove interesting. Of course, we cannot forget our crazy dictator who rules North Korea, Kim Jong Un, being the glorious leader as he is, and being crazy with his nuclear weapons and all of that, and him riding a unicorn and all of that. Well, since we do have Joe Biden as kind of like the big brother of America, we might as well make Kim Jong Un into Big Brother. Maybe we should make an AI version of him. Anyway, continuing on now. Well, there should be a focus tree for North Korea to establish the Supreme Asian Republic, like a super Asian state, but run by North Korea. And, well, this would be like a super mega North Korea conquering like many countries. Like, after it achieves reunification of Korea, it could pretty much have like a focus tree to maybe like expand more into Asia, like take Japan, Siberia, China, Mongolia, and all of Southeast Asia, as well as to form like a very powerful like Korean empire, like a Korean socialist empire, like all of that. Just conquering all these lands. Like Kim Jong Un making his own East Asia, and him becoming like a East Asia big brother. After all, North Korea has adopted the cult of personality, where the Kims are indeed worshipped as gods in North Korea, but we all know that's all pretty much bullshit anyway, since we all know they're just mortal people. But I do think the concept of North Korea forming like the Supreme People's Democratic Republic of Asia would actually be very cool as a super state that's bent on expanding across Asia and the world would actually be very cool. Like, this would be like North Korea's version of East Asia. Like, it could just conquer Japan, Southeast Asia, and Guinea, and just try to do like the good old home front moment where they could just invade the United States. Yeah. And just try to become super, like a super powerful nation. Now that would be cool for North Korea to become East Asia and become like Kim Jong Un becomes like East Asia's big brother. Anyway, moving on to the next one is India. Now, India doesn't have a folk history, but I have some ideas for it. Like, India could become communist, for example, and form the Indian People's Union. It would claim all of these territories, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, as they would seek to unify the Indian subcontinent. I believe communism should be added as part of India's folk history, as it could seek to pretty much go down the communist route and unify the Indian subcontinent under communism. It could also seek to expand its borders, like conquering Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Tibet, Nepal, Pakistan, and Afghanistan to form the Greater India, and become a major power in Asia, like integrating all those states under a single authority, like a super, like India becoming like a superpower. Moving on to the next idea for India is establishing the Republic of Hindustan. Now, this would be an Indian superstate that would stretch from all of the territories they claim, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, all the way down to Southeast Asia, to Indonesia, as they would claim, like all of these, and become like the Republic of Hindustan. Now, I do think the Republic of Hindustan should be added for focus tree for India, as it would be cool. I mean, just trying to establish a greater India and establish the Republic of Hindustan would be awesome, as all of these nations do have rather cultural influence of India, and they would definitely seek to make a Indian superstate called Hindustan, and just try to conquer all those lands and make India into the leading superpower of Asia, and India just seeks to dominate the world. Now, moving on. Now, the next one on the list is Japan. Now, I know there's a focus tree for Japan, but I do think that they could add something for Japan, like maybe a path for the far right to come into power and try to re-establish the greater Japanese empire. And just try to conquer all these nations here and dominate Asia, but under like the rule of the far right. Now that would be a cool idea for Japan. That I will pretty much say, as I do think Japan could need a path for the far right. Now, here comes a weather nation, and this one will be Taiwan this time. I do think it needs a focus tree, of course, like a focus tree to defend against Chinese aggression, mm, but also a choice where Taiwan can either choose to become a independent state, like declare its independence from pretty much China, becoming the Republic of Taiwan, or simply choosing to unify them, or simply try to seek to overthrow the Chinese Communist Party or any other totalitarian government in China, and try to unify China under the Republic of China. I believe it would be cool though for Taiwan to choose either to become an independent republic or to simply try to unify with the Chinese mainland by overthrowing the Communist Party and establishing the authority of the Republic of China with the help of its allies like Japan and India. Moving on, the next one on the list is Australia, as it doesn't have a focus tree. But the idea for a focus tree I do have for Australia is to possibly form the Oceania Federation. Like Australia forming the Oceania Federation right here, becoming rather a regional power to challenge pretty much strong nations like China or Russia, for example, or fascist United States. Well, who knows? Anyway, I do think the idea of establishing a confederacy of Oceania or federation of Oceania would actually be would be awesome, as this should be added to Australia's focus tree, as establishing Oceania would be cool. Moving on is Thailand. It does not have a focus tree, but as part of a focus tree, I believe Thailand should be given the chance to try to unite unite the Southeast Asian mainland, become rather a major power in Southeast Asia, and try to form like the Greater Thailand. I think I think it would be cool though for Thailand to actually seek to establish Greater Thailand and to have a very unique focus tree. As for Vietnam, I do think it needs a focus tree as well, where it could either seek to ally itself closely with China or ally closely with pretty much the Japanese. I also think that Vietnam should have a focus tree establish the to establish Indochina, like Vietnam taking control of Laos and Cambodia to form like the Greater Vietnam or Socialist Republic of Indochina or just the Republic of Indochina. Moving on now. Sorry about that. Moving on now to Saudi Arabia. There is a civil war sequence for this, but there's also like multiple factions like Hezbollah that seeks to overthrow the monarchy and defeat the Arabian Republicans and the Royal Arabian Coalition and establish like a puppet state in Arabia as part of a campaign to hmm, reshape the Middle East under Iranian influence, like establish a new Middle East. Now, if the monarchists win, I believe they should be given the chance to establish the Greater Saudi Arabia, which would be cool though. I mean, establishing the Greater Saudi Arabia under the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would be cool. Like, Saudi Arabia does deserve a focus tree. It could also go down on the path to forming a Arab empire and begin trying to unify the Arab world. There was all now moving on to the Arabian Republic. Now, if the Arabian Republicans win, they would form the Arabian Republic and they would unify the Arabian Peninsula under the authority of the Arabian Republic. which would make the Arabian Peninsula into a democracy. Pretty cool, huh? This should be added as part of a focus tree if the Republicans win the Civil War, as they would seek to overthrow all of the monarchies in the Arabian Peninsula and establish a democratic Arabia. Moving on now is Libya. Now, Libya doesn't have a focus tree, but it should, especially for Salif Islam Gaddafi, who does, however, take power in Libya at some point in the mod, especially if, like, the East Libya wins and defeats, like, West Libya. Now, Gaddafi, who was his father, by the way, believed in Pan-Arabism. Now, this should be a focus tree for Libya if Salif Islam does come to power in Libya. Like, he would seek to unify the Arab world into a single state. Like, of course, there will also be a second path for Salif Islam Gaddafi that I will bring up. But we will talk about this before I go to the other path. Anyway, Salif Islam would seek to unify the Arab world into a single nation. The same type of idea, though, that the Egyptian president once chose when Egypt finally became an independent Arab republic. And the goal of the Ba'ath Party, seeing that they wanted to unify the Arab world themselves into an Arab fatherland. Now, this idea should definitely be added to the mod, as Pan-Arabism being added as a focus tree for Libya under Salif Islam would be a great addition. Now, Salif Islam, if he chooses to pursue Pan-Arabism, he would reform Libya into the Arab Islam Republic. Or better yet, I will say the Arab Islam People's Republic. And this would be their flag, as the Arab Islam People's Republic would seek to unify the Arab world under a single government, under a single banner. And he would pretty much conquer like all of North Africa, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia. Then he would begin a campaign to pretty much take Arabia, Syria, the Levant, and Iraq, unifying the Arab world under pretty much the flag of the Arab Islam People's Republic. Of course, this would, however, lead to a possible conflict with Iran. And this guy here brought up a very good point, and I thought about adding his idea, though, to the video. It would be interesting to have a Cold War between Libya and Iran in the post-Israeli Middle East before a war between the two nations. If Libya wins, unifies the Arab states. If Iran wins, establish several programming pro-Iranian states. Now, this idea should definitely be added, especially for a possible conflict between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Arab Islam People's Republic, as Salif Islam would seek to unify the Arab world under the banner of the Arab Islam Republic. If he wins, the Arab world would be united under one banner. Moving on now. Now, the second path for Salif Islam would be to help establish a United States of Africa, as his father Gaddafi has proposed the idea of a United States of Africa. He could pretty much help bring this path in. So this should be added as part of a focus tree, though, where Salif Islam could pursue the idea of a United States of Africa. This should be added to Libya's focus tree. And yeah, like uniting all of Africa. A unified Africa. This idea should be added to the mod as Africa as it could either be a African Federation or African Union. It can be anything ranging from being communist, like a revolutionary African Socialist Republic, like Communist Africa, or better yet, a fascist Africa, where the fascists take over Africa and form like a African fascist superpower. Now that would be great too. Anyway, there should also be a focus tree for Morocco, where it could choose to oppose Salif Islam, Gaddafi, and it could also seek to establish Greater Morocco. Now that would be good too. And the next nation that should definitely be a possibility, and a nation that should definitely be formed in the mod by pretty much some of the East African nations like Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, or Tanzania, is the East African Federation. This should be added into the mod, seeing that pretty much establishing an East African Federation would be pretty cool, though. I mean, it would pretty much definitely be a good addition to the mod, and there could definitely be a number of paths for the East African Federation. Like it can go democratic, maybe communist. It could also go fascist and seek to unify Africa under a fascist banner, like a unified African fascist state, like uniting the entire continent under fascism. Next one. Now, there should also be a possible focus tree for some of the Somalian factions. Like, try to unify all of Somalia first, then seek to establish the greater Somalia. It can be pretty much communist, fascist, you name it. As this was an idea made by the Somalian Democratic Republic when it was ruled by a communist dictatorship, as they once seeked to form a greater Somalia themselves. Of course, that didn't work out well, and they pretty much lost. And the concept of Greater Somalia was gone. But in this mod, I do think trying to establish Greater Somalia should be added, though, for some of the Somalian factions, as it would be a good addition. Like I said, it can be communist right here, or it could be fascist right here as well. Moving on now is Sorry. Moving on now is Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia doesn't have any focus trees, but I do think it would be cool though for Ethiopia to have a focus tree to unify the Horn of Africa, like conquer Somalia, Jubaland, like all in Eritrea, and become like a major regional power in East Africa. Like try to conquer like the Horn of Africa and become a major power. Now, this would be a good choice, and Ethiopia could go down on the path towards becoming a democracy, a fascist or communist state. But I think this would definitely be the fascist path for this. Anyway, continuing. The next one is Sudan, though. Sudan could either become communist, like this. This is the flag of the Sudanese People's Union, though, which is Communist Sudan. And you could also go down on the path of becoming rather fascist. And yeah, of course, this is fascist Sudan, by the way. And if you're going to ask how big is it? Well, it's this big. And yes, fascist Sudan could definitely pursue this path and become a superstate in Africa. Moving on now is Israel. Now, Israel doesn't have a focus tree, but one of the focus trees I would definitely would like to add is Israel's path to establish the greater Israel, like the greater state of Israel, by taking all of these lands here, like all of these, to establish the greater state of Israel. And this would be the flag, though, right here, for after the greater state of Israel is established. It is called the Divine Kingdom of Israel. And this is how big it would be. It would be like a Middle Eastern superstate, controlling this much land. Now, this would be a good focus tree for Israel, as they could pursue the path of establishing a greater Israeli state. This should definitely be added to the Fire Rising mod, as it would be a good addition. But the next nation that should be added would be Greater Syria. Now, Syria definitely deserves a focus tree of its own, as there was indeed a conspect to form Greater Syria. This should definitely be added as a focus tree for Syria, as it would definitely be a great addition as well. As you could just conquer all of these lands and make Syria into a regional power and make it into a force to be reckoned with. It would be fun as a focus tree. Like a lot of fun to just make Syria into this Middle Eastern beast, this Middle Eastern superpower. Next one is Kazakhstan, is Central Asia. Mainly Kazakhstan, though. Well, Kazakhstan could pretty much pursue the idea of conquering all of Central Asia and uniting it under a single banner, as Kazakhstan does not have a focus tree, but it would be cool if it could unite Central Asia into a single country. It could also pretty much establish like a fascist Turkish state forming into a major regional power here, like all of these territories part of this greater Turkestan. Like, I believe establishing Turkestan in the Fire Rising mod would be good. It could either be democratic, fascist, anything, but a independent Turkestan state would be a good addition, as Kazakhstan could either become fascist, just try to unite Central Asia, like I said, right here, or it could try to form Turkestan and become like a major power, maybe try to unite all of the Turks. Moving on to South America, it has like no events, like nothing really happens in the COVID-19. But I think South America could definitely be needing of some events. And I think the nations there, like Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, and Argentina, could definitely need some focus trees. And let's not forget Brazil as well. Now, I think as part of the event for, Venezuela, is that they could actually invade Granada, take the territory they claim from them, and just like annex into Venezuela, forming like the Greater Venezuela. As Venezuela does claim it, and it should be added as a event. There should also be focus trees for Venezuela. The next one is Colombia. Well, Colombia should definitely have its share of focus trees. But one of the coolest ideas for Colombia is like it could pretty much go on the path to reestablish Greater Colombia by taking over Venezuela, Ecuador, and Peru, reestablishing the Greater Colombia, and just like become a regional player in South America, like a major power. Next one is Peru. Well, Peru could pretty much take multiple paths. It could probably become communist, fascist, whatever choice, and it could probably try to reestablish like the Peruvian Bolivian Union, or maybe just Greater Peru and just like expand its borders, becoming a regional power. Peru should definitely have a focus tree. Next one is Argentina, where it should have a focus tree, and it could like expand in South America, forming the Greater Argentina and becoming like a super state in South America, rivaling Brazil and coming to dominate South America. But yeah, Argentina definitely needs a focus tree. And I think trying to expand its borders to become Greater Argentina would be awesome. Next one is quite unique. Now, imagine if one of those nations become communist. Now, for example, Peru. If Peru was to be communist, this should be added as part of the Peruvian, well, communist tree. Well, any communist faction, like any communist focus tree actually in Latin America, where they could pretty much seek to form a unified Latin America under communism, like unite Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Cuba, Brazil, Argentina, Chile into like a Union of Latin American Socialist Republics. It could also go down the path of fascism, but a unified Latin America can only be achieved by a Latin American state, like Mexico or Peru or Argentina, for example. Anyway, I believe a concept of a unified Latin America should be added as a focus tree for some of these South American and Central American states, like unify all of Latin America into a single country. This would be a great focus tree to add. Moving on, there should also be pretty much nations that should be added as, well, possible breakaways like Togel, like Togel, like an independent Togel where it gains its independence from Ethiopia. There's also Biafra, where it could gain its independence from Nigeria in the mod. And there is also, yeah, well, this country right here from Equatorial Guinea, which could gain its independence from Equatorial Guinea just to become its own independent state. Should also be Baluchistan as a possible independent state for the mod as well. As it would be cool though for Baluchistan just to gain its independence from Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. Now, the next one is the Neo-Bolsheviks. I would like to see them come to power in the mod as part of Russia's focus tree, where they could form like a Neo-Bolshevik Union, 1984 style, where they conquer all of Europe, and they could probably like conquer Asia if they wanted to, and like become like a super Eurasian state. I would like to see the Neo-Bolsheviks added to the mod, as it would have rather some cool ideas. They could just make like Greater Russia, or form like a Eurasian superstate. And speaking of Eurasia, here it is. Now this, oops, now this is the idea of a Eurasian superstate, like a new Eurasian century. Now, the idea of unifying all of Asia and Europe into a single state should well, I hope it's added to the focus tree, but it should be as a unified Eurasian superstate path for focus tree would be quite unique. It would be an awesome experience. It would be a lot of fun just to achieve a Eurasian superstate. Now, the next one is Spain. Like, if the fascists takes power, Spain would pretty much like establish a new Spanish empire, like conquering all of Spanish America, like conquer all of Latin America, and take Portugal, Morocco, all those nations to form a new Spanish empire. Now that would be a good idea, especially for a focus tree for Spain, as unfortunately as of now, Spain does not have a focus tree. And it would be cool though if Spain did indeed have a focus tree to try to re-establish the Spanish Empire. Next, next one on the list is Italy. Italy does not have a focus tree, but I believe for one of its possible focus trees would be to establish the new Roman Empire, and tried to re-establish its borders. Now, that would actually be pretty cool, especially though for Italy to try to re-establish the new Roman Empire, as France already has rather a folk history of its own where they could form a new Franco state though of their own. I think Italy should have a chance to form its own its own Roman superstate as well. And the final idea is, eh, sorry about that. The final idea is to unite, like, this is probably an idea for the Soviet Union, of course. Like, this would be pretty much a idea, though. Like, if the entire world is unified by communist, like if the Soviet Union achieves absolute world domination, it would be allowed to pretty much form like the world union of Soviet socialist republics, like establish the Soviet Republic of Earth, but the union of world Soviet socialist republics. Now, this could indeed be achieved by the Soviet Union in the mod, but anyway, but that is if they have achieved absolute dominance in the world. Anyway, that's all of the ideas I do have left to offer for the mod, but I hope you guys enjoy the video and have a glorious day. And I hope my ideas have proved helpful, but if not, at least I tried. Have a nice day.